Gate 47, an overnight airport confession. I don't remember buying the ticket so much as escaping into it. Airports are good for that. No one asks why you're here as long as you're going somewhere else. The departure board flickered its electric rosary. Delayed, canceled, delayed. Outside, winter leaned against the terminal glass and breathed frost into every plan. I stood beneath a vent that hummed like a cheap lullaby and watched people perform what I'd forgotten purpose. The flight number on my phone belonged to a city I had once promised we'd visit together. We had lists. She had lists, really. Claire wrote our future in columns. Museums, noodles, parks, a bookstore with a cat that allegedly chose you. She had a way of folding the corner of a page and making the paper believe obedience was a privilege. And then, how do you say it without weakening the bones? She stepped out of the story. Not with flames, not with betrayal written in lipstick on a mirror, but with the quiet skill of someone who has practiced leaving in their head 1,000 times. One morning, the ring-shaped tan on my finger met the absence of hers. One evening, I came home to a kitchen that had rinsed itself of her, a table that had learned in a single day to survive on less. People said things the way people do. Most of them sounded like furniture moving in another room. Some of them sounded like a name I didn't know. His. I didn't run to find out. I walked. I walked to the train. I walked to the airport. I walked to Gate 47 the way a guilty man walks to a confessional, rehearsing sins he only half committed. My flight blinked from 21:05 to 23:40, and then to a time that might as well be called later. A child near me built an empire out of snack wrappers and then burned it down by accident with a spilled juice box. I envied the drama. Rough night? A voice asked. It belonged to the seat across from me, to a woman wearing a scarf the color of midnight and a coat that understood rain. She had the kind of face that looks like it's been told secrets and kept most of them. Depends on your definition of smooth, I said. She nodded. The kind of night that puts a dent in the week. I'm David, I said, because saying your name out loud is sometimes the only thing that proves you still have it. Elena, she said. I used to love delays. They buy time without asking what you'll pay them back with. You travel for work. For endings, she said. And when I didn't understand, she added, I'm a mediator. People hire me to help them not set their lives on fire while they're trying to leave each other. Does it work? Often enough to keep the lights on, she said. Sometimes I wish it didn't. Some houses deserve to burn. The loudspeaker mispronounced a city like it didn't want the responsibility. Somewhere a suitcase learned a new dent. Elena watched people the way musicians watch the metronome. And I found myself, without meaning to telling a stranger, how my wife had turned a page without me, and how I wasn't sure if the story that came after required me to become a better man or a smaller one. She left a message, I said. Not to me. To the house. It knows how to live without her now. I'm just renting. Did she give you a reason? Elena asked. She gave me silence sturdy enough to stand on, I said. Maybe that's a reason. The PA coughed. Our flight slid into canceled like a body finding a grave. A chorus of groans rose, the airport's favorite hymn. The airline texted me a hotel voucher for a building on the edge of exhaustion. I didn't stand. Elena didn't either. You ever sleep on floors? And she asked. College, I said. Once on purpose in a cathedral, because I wanted to know what echoes sound like from the ground. There's a chapel past the food court, she said. They never close it. Better than a carpet that's met every shoe in town. I'm not religious, I said. Neither are delays, she said. They still teach patience. The chapel was narrow and honest. Someone had left a bowl of earplugs by the door with a note. For engines or babies or prayers too loud. A custodian vacuumed the last daylight out of the carpet and wished us a good night in a language soft as dust. We took opposite pews like strangers, pretending to be polite. I lay on my back and watched a stained glass window test its colors against the fluorescent lights. Elena unwrapped a sandwich you could hire as a brick. She split it, handed me half, and that's when the app on my phone lit up with a name I hadn't been brave enough to say for weeks. Claire. I know you don't owe me anything, but if you're at the airport, don't get on a plane yet. Please. Elena watched my face learn the news. Her? Yeah. What does she want? I don't know yet, I said, but she used Please. That's not her favorite word. Do you want to answer? Elena asked. I want to be the version of me that answers well, I said. That's not the same thing. She nodded like we were in the same guild. What would you say if you could rehearse it first? I typed and deleted and typed again. I'm here, she replied before my doubt could interfere. 20 minutes. Arrivals level. North doors. Elena stretched her legs out, a quiet concession to the ache. You want me to come with you? I don't know what I want, I said, but I know who I'll be if I go alone. Then I'll walk you to the door, she said. She was always good at making a place look like it had been waiting for her. Under the arrivals board, she turned the indifferent light into a joke and made strangers forgive themselves for crowding. Her hair was shorter. Her hands looked like hands that had learned new work. She held a paper cup of coffee like it owed her money. Hi, she said. Hi. For a second, we were those two people in front of an officiant again, answering small questions like they mattered. Then the moment remembered it was a terminal and resumed departures. I didn't know if you'd come, she said. I didn't, I said, and then I did. She smiled and it cost her. I'm not here to fix anything, she said, or ask. I found something and I didn't know who else would understand what it meant. What is it? A key, she said. To a locker, not mine. Where? She looked past me at nothing. Here. She told me the story and the kind of sentences you use when you're trying not to break the furniture in someone else's house. Weeks of silence. A name not mine. A new address near a river that refused to make up its mind. And then this morning, an envelope under her door with a number scrawled like a dare. B3 512. No return. No note. Just the number in a small card printed with the airport's logo, the kind that looks like it was picked up by accident and turned into purpose. I thought it was him, she said. I thought the day had finally decided to stop pretending I was safe. Him, I repeated. You can learn a lot about a man by how many pronouns a woman won't say. She swallowed. I went down there and stood in front of it and couldn't do it. I only made one call. She looked at my shoes as if negotiating with gravity. To you. Why? Because I left badly, she said, but I didn't want to open this badly too. We found the escalator that believed in downward. The B3 level was a fellowship of fluorescent lights and echoing wheels. Locker 5 and 12 was the color of airline gray and the shape of a future you'd like to misplace. The key turned with a cough. Inside sat a shoebox wrapped in brown paper, like a package the past had mailed to the wrong address. Claire reached toward it and then retreated, the way you do with hot surfaces and old love. I lifted it out, set it on the floor, and cut the twine with my teeth because my hands thought they might shake if I used them. In the box, under tissue that had learned to be careful, lay three things: a phone sealed in a plastic bag, a leather-bound notebook, and a cheap brass bell with a crack down one side. Elena stood in the doorway, a shadow with eyes. You want a witness? She asked. Always, I said. Claire pressed her palms together like she'd lost them and was trying to negotiate their return. The phone first, she said. It lit with the despairing heart of a battery on its last good day. One new voicemail, time-stamped an hour earlier. I put it on speaker. A man's voice filled the tile, rich with practice. Claire, you were always good at secrets. I need you to do one last thing. Locker 512, B3, there's a notebook. It has the names we said we'd forget. It has a number for the person who keeps the switch. If I don't call by noon tomorrow, burn it. Don't be a hero. Heroes are bad liars. Claire's mouth was a line. That's him, she said almost gently. Elena looked at the notebook like it might bite a second time. Who is he? Claire didn't answer. She opened the book. Names, cities, dates, arrows between them like veins. At the back, a page that made a new cold inside the existing one. Payments, Courier C. W, and next to it, a list of times, all on Tuesdays. Small amounts at first, then larger, then a note. No more Airport 2 visible. Tell me this isn't what it looks like, I said, and then hated myself for giving the sentence to anyone. Claire touched the initials like they were a signature from an imposter. He told me it was nothing that would touch you. He told me I was helping passing envelopes from a gallery, holding on to keys, signing for packages. He said I was good at being ordinary. She laughed, a short, broken plank of sound. When I realized what it was, when I stopped letting him rename it, I tried to stop. He said I was already part of the story, that the safest way to leave was through it. Elena's voice didn't rise. How long? Claire answered me, not her. A year, she said. Then I packed a bag and cut the note out of the calendar instead of writing one. It felt merciful until the first morning I woke up somewhere else and realized mercy wears the same coat as cowardice if you don't turn the light on. What do you want now? I asked, not because I thought I could give it, but because I didn't know how to be a person who didn't ask. I want it to end without ending anyone who didn't sign up for it, she said. I want to hand this to someone who won't let themselves be congratulated for it. She looked at me as if asking my permission to be human. I want you to stop being the person I left on. The bell in the box gleamed dully, its crack like a small biography. I lifted it. It made a thin sound when I flicked it with my fingernail, a sound that asked for help without having learned how to. We take this to the police, I said. We give them everything. We let them do their job. Elena nodded. And before we do, we write down what we want from the truth. It changes less if you name it. What do you want? I asked her, because I had the sense she'd practiced wanting responsibly. For him to underestimate the right person for once, she said. For you to sleep this week. For her to use please when it won't cost anyone else their skin. We walked the long, fluorescent river to the elevator. The bell in my pocket ticked like a bad heart. The phone died mercifully. In the chapel, the custodian had finished rearranging dust. Elena sat in the pew behind us so we wouldn't have to turn our necks to include her. Detective Cates met us in a room at the airport substation that held 4 chairs and a vending machine that promised consequences. She listened without hurry. She photographed without drama. She read the names, the arrows, the Tuesdays. She didn't look at me to measure whether my face would cry. Good, she said when we finished. We'll hold the phone, log the call, watch the number. We'll keep 1 copy of the notebook and you'll keep another. She slid a scanner from a drawer that had not been opened for company in months. You came here tonight because you're tired of secrets owning you. That counts for something measurable. She paused, then asked Claire the only question the room had not yet permitted. Do you feel safe? Claire looked at her hands. I don't know what safe means yet. Then tonight it means you don't go home alone, Kate said. We have rooms on the concourse. You can each have one. You can choose your own doors. We signed. We handed the bell to the detective, and she handed it back. Keep it, she said. You'll need the sound of a small thing doing its job. I didn't sleep. Some nights aren't built for it. Around 4, the airport did its false dawn lights up, music on, the janitorial symphony tuning to the key of morning. I walked the concourse until I found a window where the snow let the runway breathe. Elena found me there with 2 coffees that had dreams of being better. How did we do? She asked. I made new mistakes, I said, but they're not the old ones. I'm calling that progress. She watched the first plane test its wings. Do you still love her? Yes, I said, because the truth hadn't asked my permission. But that's not the question that's going to save anyone. What is? Do I trust myself not to make love into an alibi again? She nodded, satisfied. You'll do. At 11:58, the detective texted, ready. At 12:08, the dead phone in evidence custody called 3 numbers at once in a way only the guilty believe is clever. One went to a payphone near baggage claim that had the decency to still exist. One went to a desk at a newsstand where the clerk apologized for being alive. One went to me. We let the machine answer. The voice didn't belong to a stranger after all. It never had. It belonged to the mirror. It said, Claire, time's up. Fire clean. Make sure the kind man gets paid for his trouble. If he asks questions, tell him he's the reason you got out. Detective Cates smiled without humor. Arrogance is a gift, she said, and angled her people toward a camera that watched baggage claim pretend to be a city. We didn't catch him wearing a cape. We caught him the way people like him loathe being caught, half a step from an exit, with no one to applaud his careful rehearsals. He approached the payphone with a scarf pulled high, a cap pulled low, and a posture that said he knew this dance and had never lost. When the first officer touched his elbow, he smiled like a man asked for his autograph. When the second positioned herself between him and the door, he showed his teeth. When Claire stepped forward from the bench where she had been instructed to wait for identification and said his name, his real one, he didn't look at her at all. He looked at me. "Furniture," he said softly, as if offering me a last-minute promotion. "Not today," I said. They took him quietly. Cameras caught us refusing to be appetites. The detective signed paperwork that made the day legal. Elena exhaled a week. Claire and I sat in the chapel where the earplugs had made their argument and listened to the bell ring once as a child ran past with a toy that believed in sirens. "You saved me," Claire said. "No," I said. "You dialed." I answered. "That's all." "I don't know how to pay you back," she said. "You don't," I said. "You pay forward, and you tell the truth in the right direction." She nodded. The word please wasn't needed anymore. I didn't get on my flight. Plans are a currency. I spent mine on staying. Claire stayed at the hotel the airline provided for apologies. Elena moved her own flight and taught me how to sit with a person the humane way. Not too close, not too far. Tea instead of caffeine. Questions that don't imply you've already picked the answers for them. That evening, the storm remembered how to be dramatic. Snow turned the windows into seas. We walked the concourse like a museum of decisions and looked at souvenirs we didn't buy. In the bookstore, I picked up a guide to the city we had never reached and put it back where someone who meant it could find it. "Will we talk again?" Claire asked, standing at the hinge of the hall. "Yes," I said, "but not about the version of us that tried to make a house out of secrets." "What about the version who loved easy mornings?" she asked. "They deserve a photograph," I said, "not a sequel." She put her hand on my arm, not the way people stake claims, but the way they return borrowed things. "Thank you," she said, "for not being a hero, for being better." "I'm practicing," I said. She turned. The hallway took her gently. Elena leaned against a pillar, hands in pockets, the posture of someone who has learned to let other people finish. "You did well," she said. "I did something," I said. "That's sometimes what well is." "What do you do when the thing is over?" I asked. "You close your tab," she said. "You tip the part of the day that did its job. You pick a gate on purpose, and you don't make your future pay off your past debts." I smiled. "You sure you're not a priest?" "Just a mediator," she said, "between people, between versions, between the story and the day." A week later, the detective called, not with an ending exactly, but with enough of one to sleep. The man with the practiced voice had a passport shower, a wallet called Julian once, and Evan on weekends, and 3 phones that believed in miracles. The notebook traced payments from a handful of cities with rivers, all moving toward a single pocket that had stopped pretending it was a gallery years ago. There were names in it that didn't belong to us. There were consequences that did. Claire's cooperation, timely and complete, became the kind of truth the law can tally. "I can't tell you to forgive her," Kate said, "but I can tell you she told the truth when it wasn't the easiest option available. In my line of work, that's a holiday." "Is he going away?" I asked. "For a while," she said, "long enough to give other people choices again." "Good," I said. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like a room you could breathe in. That night, I wrote a list inside my cupboard. Not fixable. The weather, other people's appetites, the past. Fixable. My habit of mistaking pretending for patience, the hinge on the hallway closet, the way I use silence like a weapon, the belief that love owes me paperwork. I kept the bell. It sounded cracked and honest. On flights now, when the plane lifts into a sky that has forgotten the ground for a minute, I think about Gate 47 and a stranger who taught me how to walk to a door without taking the whole building with me. I think about a chapel where earplugs and prayers live side by side without arguing. I think about a detective who wanted a compliment from a man like him and settled for the paperwork instead. I think about a woman who left badly and returned better and then kept going, like a person who finally learned the grammar of forward. Sometimes I answer unknown numbers. Sometimes I let them ring. Either way, I know who I am when I do. And when the departure board mispronounces a city I might someday mean, I smile at it and keep my bag light. The world is full of gates that promise different versions of you at the other end. The trick I'm learning is not to board a flight that asks you to leave yourself behind at security. I'm David, I'm here. And for once, that counts as going somewhere.